This episode of the Coarse Grind Podcast has been brought to you by Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, family-owned and operated screen printing and embroidery business located in a historic storefront on Old Berwick Road in the heart of Espy. They've been doing screen printing for over 20 years. They have high-quality product at a low price. Be sure to check them out. Central Sports and Graphics Incorporated, 570-784-1212. Now, on to the show.
Hi, everyone. This is David Frew from Chef2.com, and you're listening to Sean Rousler on the Coarse Grind Podcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Episode number 183 of the Coarse Grind Podcast. How am I counting this high? I was an English teacher, not a math teacher. With you as always this evening, host, creator Sean Rossler. How is everyone doing this evening? You know, as I look over the schedule for upcoming episodes, specifically tonight's, I'm reminded of just how very long one can try to get a guest on your program, watching them from afar, stunned by just how much they're able to fit into the same 24 hours I have, to be a constant presence in that ever-flowing river of social media presence, only to have a dear, if not newer friend, hook you up like no one else could. And I mean that, Gloria. I mean that. With someone who is the embodiment of, hey, don't I know you from somewhere? This is your guy tonight, kids. And I can bet with relative certainty that once you hear who he is and what he's done, more of you than not will know exactly just who the F he is. Tonight's guest was born and raised in Philadelphia, PA, having had his first experiences in the kitchen as a young child with his big Irish-Italian family. Those experiences introduced him to culinary life and led him to study at Philadelphia's The Restaurant School at Walnut Hill College. Culinary school may have taught him technique, but it was those Sunday nights cooking with his family where he developed his passion. Amen, amen, amen. After graduation, our guest worked under James Beard award-winning chef Jean-Marie Lacroix at the Four Seasons in Philadelphia and transitioned into namesakes like Christopher's, the Dave McGrogan Group, and Seafood America. The Duffifed Experience Group led him to a consultative presence, allowing him to work with restaurants across the country, updating their menus and coaching them through much-needed facelifts. But it might just be from his constant flow of TV goodness, and it is constant, kids, that you know him from Bar Rescue to DIY Network, HGTV, NBC, Fine Living Network, going so far as to judge on Beat Bobby Flay. And you all know where I am on that hashtag Morimoto. Fast forward, he's all over the social media and has his own show, Duffifed Live, and if he wasn't busy enough, maintains consultancy with Rock Hard Media Group. Is there anything this dude doesn't do? Let's find out, ladies and gentlemen, and everyone in between. Culinary New Celtic phenomenon, presence, celebrity, and a Duff behind Duffified, Chef Brian Duffy. What is going on, man?
What's up, brother? It's so good to finally be on.
It is. It's good to have you on. It's good to have you in that seat because when I say from afar, like, I don't want this to be stalkerish, and it could go that route real quick, and I know that. I've had enough restraining orders to know I need to choose my words carefully here. It's amazing to watch the veritable flow of work and presence you create in your stream, man. It is remarkable, and you are certainly a force to be reckoned with, and I couldn't wait to share your story, and I'm so glad you're here tonight, buddy.
Well, thanks, man. I appreciate that.
Absolutely.
It's been a lot of fun. You know, I mean, I've done I've traveled the world, and I never thought, you know, when I was in culinary school and getting ready to graduate, I knew one thing, and that one thing was that I wanted to get as far south as possible.
Yeah.
And that was the only thing. And I graduated culinary school on December 6th, 1994, and on December 9th, I was in Key Largo, Florida. So I did okay for myself.
He didn't wait around, kids. He went right for it. So, all right. Well, I cannot wait to dive into the story. Starters, mains, and afters, as always, kids. Starters, we're going to talk about where the guest in the hot seat has come from, what brought them to present day. Mains, we'll talk about present day and everything they got going on, which in Duffy's case here is going to be pretty significant. And afters, a little bit more irreverent, a little bit more off the cuff. But I promise you, in 182 episodes, no one has been seriously physically injured in the guest seat. So I don't see that happening tonight, but who knows? It could get crazy. So without further ado, Chef Brian Duffy, tell me about where and what you grew up eating, sir.
I grew up in a pretty straightforward, like, Irish, Italian, Catholic house. Yep. Both of my parents worked. I had 2 younger brothers that were twins, that are twins, yep. And I have an older sister. We're all 3 years apart, except for my brothers. They're 13 minutes apart. But, I grew up in a household where my father was a teacher during the day, and my mother was pretty much a nurse at night. Both professionals in what they did. And so, I think on the weekends, my mother did the bulk of the cooking, whereas during the week, my father did more of the cooking. And for my father grew up in, a household where he was actually raised by 6 women.
Wow.
My grandmother got divorced in 1946. After realizing that her husband at that point was an alcoholic.
Oh, right.
And she did not want her son being raised by an alcoholic, and she got divorced. I mean, in 1946.
Yeah, that's a big number. Yeah.
So my father was raised basically by my grandmother and her sisters.
Awesome.
So, and this is a family that kind of, the parents came over on the boat. They had children here. So my father grew up in South Philly. My mother, on the other hand, grew up in Euclid, Ohio.
Okay.
A child with 2 siblings and her parents that, they both worked and did really cool things. So, but cooking wasn't a huge part for them. And if it was that classic kind of Midwest Irish cooking.
Yeah. And people unfamiliar with the Philadelphia territory hear Irish and Italian, and they always have like a question mark on their face. If you're from Pennsylvania, you hear that and go, well, of course, that's like half of Philly. Yeah. It just goes without saying. So growing up with this, what could be considered probably traditional fare for the area, were you adventurous as an eater? Did you try new things? Were you averse to them at that point?
I mean, my father was more of the adventurous cook. He was really the one who would study cookbooks and stuff like that. Whereas my mother, to this day, even when she makes her cheesy mashed potatoes, pulls the 3x5 card out of the recipe file.
Oh.
So my father was really adventurous with stuff. He was the one who was always trying things. He was the one, I think, where we got, I know my brothers and I, my sister is a cook as well, but my brothers and I really dabbled a lot further. But, he was the guy who, would go to the Italian market and he would buy live eels. And then bring them home. I learned, if I have any vision of my father, the one vision that I truly remember is my father leaning over the sink during the summers with his elbows, with a towel underneath of them, and he was cleaning crabs. Like, that is one vision that we all have. My father used to clean the crabs for everybody, then we sauteed them in garlic and butter and olive oil and then salt and pepper, and that was how we ate crabs growing up.
Wow. And, it's so funny because from this area, I say from this area, let me specify a bit more, going more towards southern Pennsylvania, Maryland, Delaware, everyone's got like kind of a crab memory, kind of a seafood memory to that end. Talk to me about that reflection, that nostalgia. Obviously I just heard it in your voice there. What other foods do you think back and go, damn, remember when...
I remember my father used to make a dish called bunzette.
Bunzette.
Which, traditionally, bunzette is a veal shoulder that is stuffed with egg, breadcrumbs, and pepperoni.
Holy shit.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't react to that any other way.
So I've always tried to have a little bit of like an homage to my parents or to the history of our family on every menu that I do. And the first restaurant that I ever owned, I was a partner with a guy named Chris. Chris was kind of a douchebag. But Chris was a young kid. His parents had a lot of money. I used to find Chris doing coke in the bathroom. Like, Chris was a weird dude.
Yeah.
But I had a dish on the menu that was a stuffed pork chop, which was a version of this that we had on the menu for some reason, we ended up having one, and I was like, you know what? It's been here for 3 days, whatever it is. Like, toss it out. We're just not going to run it. We're not going to run it for this week, whatever it was. I don't remember the scenario, but I remember throwing it out.
Okay.
And then I got a phone call about an hour later from Philadelphia Magazine, and they were like, "Hey, you were reviewed by Craig Laban, who is still the food critic in Philadelphia. Yeah. Nobody knows what he looks like. Like, there's been conversations about it and pictures and stuff like that, but most people have no idea what he looks like." So they said the number one dish that he talked about was the stuffed pork chop.
Nice.
We have a photographer who's in the area right now. We would love to get a picture of that dish. Can we do that? And I'm like, it's like 4:00 in the afternoon. And I'm like, shit. And I look at my brother, who was my sous chef in the restaurant at that point. Yeah. And I'm like, get the pork chop out of the trash. And we literally, now, granted, nobody was eating this pork chop. It was specifically being used for a picture. Right. But I didn't have any more, and the guy was around the corner.
Oh, God.
So I cooked this pork chop up, and we literally took a picture of it, and I think it was on the cover of the food section or whatever it was. And every time that I see that picture, I laugh because I'm like, I threw that motherfucker in the trash.
Little did they know, like seconds before, it was in the fucking 86.
But that was one of the dishes, like that stuffed veal shoulder. There's 3 major things that my father made. Yeah. My father made the stuffed veal shoulder, the banzette, which I actually did later on in my career on a TV show, and I put it on a menu at an Italian restaurant in Boston in the North End. Nice. And my father always did crabs, and then my father we used to do la Vigile, which is the feast of the 7 fishes. Okay. And we would do Christmas Eve, and my father did all of the preparations for it. I mean, for up until 10 years ago.
Yeah. I mean, because that's a big deal. I couldn't necessarily rattle all 7 off, but I know, like, there's like what salty cod.
So they do a bacalao, which is the first one. Yeah. Then they do polpa, which is the octopus. Mm-hmm. Then they do malutes, which is a whitefish. And then we did shrimp, calamari, clams. What was the other one? There was that one more. There was one more that we did, and now I can't remember it. Anyway, we did the 7 of them. Oh, smells. We did smells. Okay. So we did the 7 fish, and to this day, we still do a variation of it. I only did 5 this year because of COVID, and there weren't as many people at my house, and blah, blah, blah. But it was those are the 3 meals that I just vividly remember my father saying, "Go, stop eating the goddamn shrimp. There's not going to be any left for dinner." But we would buy like 10 pounds of shrimp for like 11 people, and it was a 7-course, like 6-hour meal. And then we went to midnight mass after. Yep. So those are really good memories of my father cooking.
Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So the next question, goddamn, if ever there's been a softball slow pitch question in the history of the show, this might be it. Greatest culinary influence growing up?
My parents.
Yeah.
I mean, that was, because my parents I learned from my parents. I didn't learn technique from them, but I did learn the adventurous nature of it. And I also learned kind of, how to make things taste really good. Yeah. Based off of technique. Mm-hmm. So I didn't learn the technical aspects in regards to roasting, braising, frying, that sort of stuff, or knife work, or any of that. But I learned how to season properly, and that was probably one of the big things that I took from my parents, and the other level of being, being an adventurous eater because of my father. Yeah, and I mean, I think that's people get so hung up on technical. A lot of times, people will ask me about the show. I say a lot of times like I have a big fan following. I don't, but whatever. When the 2 people that ask me the questions about this, they're like, oh, do you have culinary training? I'm like, yeah, I watch my parents cook. Like, that's where I think that's where honestly you get the motivation from. In acting, they talk about
where it is you're pulling your motivation from. Where are you drawing from? And I almost think like you have to have that before you have the skills, because if you get those skills taught to you, but you don't have the passion, you're an automaton. You're basically going through the motions.
Yeah.
That's just my humble.
For us, I have a motto that I truly believe in. I've got it tattooed on my body. It says that the art of the preparation creates the experience. It's the enjoyment of it's the enjoyment of putting the food together that I truly, that for me is what I love. I love being organized. I love being prepared for the meal. That's the stuff that I love. Now, when I cook at home, the art of the preparation, by the way, that was a cough, not COVID. The art of the preparation is the stuff that I love. Like, my girlfriend just came home a couple minutes ago, and I said, hey, do you want something to eat? And she was like, what are you having? And I sent her a picture of a seared steak that I had that we bought at an Asian market that had this just stunning marbling to it. And I just seared it off. I butter basted it, and I threw a little boursin and cheese on top of it. That was my dinner. But
love it.
For me, it was the pulling the steak out, the resting of the steak, the salt and pepper of that steak, allowing it to sit for a couple of minutes, heating the pan up, getting the steak in and searing it, adding the butter, basting it. Yeah. Like that to me is the fun stuff. Yep. And if more people learned those basic skills, then the preparation, the art of that preparation is going to make the meal that much more enjoyable. If you know how to use a knife and you know how to make it a good cut, it makes cooking a lot easier.
1,000%. Like, honestly, going back in the time machine almost 8 years now, that's part of the reason I even put this into being. It's like the happy place is that, like, prime example, I know we were talking off mic that, my wife is down in Philly, down by you right now. And, so over the weekend, though, we were like food prepping for the weekend, everything. And she came out and I'm prepped. I'm over 2 cut boards on our Butcher Block Island going to work. And she's like, are you happy? And I had this look at her like, are you serious? Like, this is where I want to be. This is where I always want to be. Like, it's formative. And so to that end, speaking of that love, that passion being formative, when was it? I mean, growing up where you grew up, obviously food was center stage. When did you know this was going to be it for you? When did you know it was less about, well, if I put food in me, I survive and I continue? It was more about the art, the craft, and what you wanted to devote your life to. When was that moment?
So I hated school. I'll just say that very straightforward. I hated middle school. I hated high school. I went to college, and I hated it. I just couldn't stand it. It wasn't the direction that I knew I wanted to go, because I didn't know what direction I wanted to go, but I just knew that it wasn't enjoyable to me. I loved the sports part of it. I loved the social aspect of it, but the education part of it, I basically taught myself, is the way that I did things. I wasn't a traditional learner. So I kind of taught myself a lot of stuff. I made it through. I did everything I had to do, but I taught myself in reality. So moving into, then at like 19 years old, after working in restaurants for 5 years as a busboy, as a server, stuff like that, I was sick and tired of it because I worked every weekend and I worked most holidays and nights, and I couldn't stand it. So I said, I'll never work in a restaurant again. And I actually left the restaurant industry and went and worked for Ralph Lauren. I used to sell Ralph Lauren clothes, polo, at the Bellevue in Philadelphia, which was one of the most grandiose polo stores that they had. Wow. And this was in the early 90s. Like, actually, it was in the late 80s, early 90s that I was doing that.
Oh, well, and that was when Ralph Lauren and Polo Blue was the shit.
Exactly.
Like, yeah.
Exactly. And I mean, like, some of my customers that I had, my clients, quote unquote, were drug dealers. Like, I had a drug dealer who used to come in and buy. One day he came in and bought 6, I want to say they were like $800 jackets and paid in cash. All of his crew wore them. They were bright red. Well, the next day they went on sale. And I called the guy up and I was like, yo, I don't know what his name was. But I was like, hey, I just want to let you know that your jackets went on sale yesterday. Like, they're now $600 instead of $800 or whatever it was. Yeah. And he was like, all right. Like, oh, no big deal. I don't care. No biggie. I'm like, brother, you're talking about, like, you know, whatever, $1,200 difference, whatever it was. Yeah. That guy came in the next day and they refunded him his money because they went on sale. And I remember him walking out and he handed me like $400.
Nice.
But he got out and he walked out and he like got into this like long Benz. And there were like 8 dudes in the car with him, and they were all wearing red jackets. It was so funny. But that was me. Like, I didn't want to go into the restaurant industry. And then I got bored with it. I got bored with retail. I was now working nights and weekends again. And a friend of mine who I used to cook for, I used to cook for him and his girlfriend, and I used to cook for women when I was dating and younger and stuff like that. He was like, you should really think about going to culinary school. And I'm like, what do you mean going to culinary school? I'm not going to go to school to learn how to cook. Yeah. Like, this was so pre-Food Network. Yeah. You know, what it's like to be a chef now, that it wasn't even a thought for me. Right. Fast forward, I did a little bit of research. I found out there was a culinary school in Philadelphia. I did some research, and then I remember that I got like the acceptance letter, and I was floored. Yeah. I mean, I remember like walking out onto the front porch of my parents' house and being like, I got accepted to culinary school.
That's awesome.
Like, it was such a weird moment, but I didn't find my love for it until about 3 days after I was actually in school. Yeah. Because I enjoyed cooking. I had fun. I was no stranger to coming home after the bars at night and being drunk and banging out some filet. Like, that was the stuff that we cooked. Yes. But it was when I got into school and after my first couple of days of knife cuts, when I started to learn the process of what I was doing. You start with knife cuts, then you work into, your knife cuts happen on vegetables. Then you go into fabrication of meats, because then we learn how to make stocks and soups and sauces. Yep. So for me, the whole process of cause and effect is what I fell in love with. If I put a steak on here for this long, this is what happens.
Yep.
You know, and so for me, that was where my love really came into it.
If I put it on this hot surface versus in this hot oven, it cooks 2 different ways. Yeah, man, for sure. But again, to go back to it, like you fell in love with it first, and I mean, clearly you fell out of love with it, but then you fell back in love with it. And that's when
I wasn't in a kitchen for those first couple of years. I was a busboy, but I remember being a waiter. Yeah. At a place called McCluskey's, which is still there, a little tiny dive bar in Ardmore, Pennsylvania. And it was a little Irish pub that was owned. And I remember watching the cooks, and I was like, these guys are badasses.
Dude,
the servers wanted them, the bartenders, the women in the restaurant wanted them, and I was like, I could totally do that. And I went to culinary school after that.
That's it, man. And you know, you talk to the dishwashers. Like my oldest has been hot about getting a job. You know, this, that, and the other thing. I said, go be a dishwasher in a restaurant. You will learn so much if you keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your ears open.
Yeah, I love I have a great dishwasher right now. A young guy, he's probably 30. Yeah. But, you know, he owned a landscaping company, and his truck broke down. Yeah. And he needed a job, and I found him on Craigslist, and I love the guy. I mean, he's a part of our family now. That's awesome. He's a great asset to the restaurant.
That's incredible. Man. Yeah. And again, you know, I've done enough of these, and I hear the stories where the success has happened and the success hasn't. I mean, that's it. So if you put a flag in the dirt for what year you started culinary school, you said it was pre-Food Network. When are we talking?
So I would have to say, you know, it's a 2-year program, so 1991.
Nice. Okay. Yeah, because Food Network, if I recall, because I had the honor and privilege of having David Rosengarten on the show. And so he was coming out with Taste, I want to say circa 92. Okay. So again, it just missed it on the low end. But I mean, still, there was programming like, you know, great chefs of the fill in the region, Justin Wilson,
Martin
Yan can cook.
The Galloping Gourmet.
Yep.
You know, I mean, who was the Raging Cajun? Was that his name?
Yeah, Justin Wilson. Justin Wilson. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, that was the guy. So, like, I mean, we had our own, and I kind of half joke, but I'm half serious. Like, my kids are like, oh, I'm weird. I'm like, dude, you weren't the 6th grader who would get up on Saturday mornings and change the channel from cartoons to cooking on PBS. So, anyway, I digress. So, all of this brings you forward, my friend, into what one would be like underselling hardcore to call immense culinary success. That's what you've done. And we could talk about all angles of it, but really what I want to do now is kind of focus on the present. And one of the almost not quite present, slightly future, is myworldchef.com. What's going on with that? Talk to me about that.
So my brothers, who are both very talented cooks themselves, have been in Hollywood for 24 years, 25, 26 years, whatever it is. Created a production company for themselves called Ugly Brother Studios, where they started to do a lot of different programming. Yeah, they're twins. You gotta love it.
I love that.
They started to do a lot of programming, and they found their niche was really in food. It was just one of the things that they did. We've done shows together. We've worked together for a long time. There's a lot of passion between the three of us for what we do. And so my brothers actually were the creators of this company, and it's called My World Chef, or World Chef. And what it is it's the world's first shoppable foodie marketplace, where we work with the greatest chefs in the country. I can name right off the bat, I just shot with them last week. We shot Tim Hollingsworth, who won World's Table. Yeah. We shot with Tiffany Derry, who just got Best Chef in Dallas. Wow. We shot with Manushka Guerrier from California.
Manushka, I love her. Yeah.
She's the best.
Yep.
We shot with Justin Warner, who is a great chef from Maryland, who actually lives in South Dakota now and has a ramen shop in South Dakota. We shot with some really pretty amazing chefs. Jet Tila was with us. But what we're doing is we are creating a shoppable marketplace for people to go. We all know the internet's crazy. You type in right now, like I'm doing a recipe for soda bread right now. And what I typically do when I do those recipes is I do a lot of research. The history of it. I find equal components in each recipe. I build my recipes from research and from professional relationships, knowing from my skills of things that I've learned, my education. Mm-hmm. But when you type in something into Google or wherever it is, you end up with 550,000 variations of something. Mm-hmm. So what we're doing is we're creating a one-stop shopping location where you can get education. It's a subscription-based service at around $4.99 a month. It's a shoppable marketplace. But the coolest part about what we do is that we work with these chefs, we develop a menu with them, and then we create a completely produced segment. And when you say a produced segment, that's kind of a negative thing, but what it is a very artistic segment that's typically about 15 minutes of this chef, like Tim Hollingsworth, teaching you how to reverse sear a steak.
Beautiful.
Okay?
Beautiful.
The basics of that. But then we have Tiffany Derry who comes in, and she's making her mother's gumbo. But you're getting that gumbo that has been shipped to you, and then we're also then shipping you the raw chicken thigh and the shrimp, so you can heat the gumbo up, and then you can add that all the other components into that gumbo to make it. We've got Brooke Williamson who's with us. We've got from Playa Provisions. We've got some pretty amazing chefs on our platform, and we're just going to continue to build it more and more as we move forward. One of my first boxes that I've put together is a Philly style lobster roll.
Hell yeah!
I work with exactly. So, and that's kind of my style of food, of the stuff that I do, is a mashup. Not a mashup, because a lot of people are like, oh, you're taking meatloaf and you're adding, jalapenos into it. Like, that's a mashup. What I'm doing is I'm trying to take my history of Philadelphia, the love that I have for this city, the love that I have for the products that this city produces, and I try to do things a little differently. So on my menu, I do a Bahia hot hoagie. So I braise, mock tenders or chuck tenders. I braise them with adobo seasoning and spices and a bunch of chilies, and we make a Bahia hot hoagie. We take Alicia's seeded Italian roll. We put salsa baracha on it. We put, a molita blend of cheese that goes into that. Oh. We bake it off, and then we stuff it with braised Bahia. We top it with cotija cheese and pickled red onions and salsa baracha on top of it, and that's one of our number one selling items. So to give you an idea, for me, my first box is going to be a Philly lobster roll. So I partnered with Get Maine Lobster out of Maine. We're going to be shipping our boxes out of there. I've got a beautiful butter that goes with it. I made a really nice cheese sauce that has a cream cheese and smoked or cheddar and a little bit of a Cooper Sharp American that goes into it with caramelized onions and lettuce and little tiny red onions that are diced. And it's just super fun. And these are the items that you can watch me make on this platform, and then you can click to buy it.
Unbelievable.
So it's like we the whole idea was to create smell-o-vision.
Yeah.
And what we did was we've now taken it so that you can eat what you see, and that's the idea of what we wanted to do, and that's what we've created. So that's World Chef.
I love every single facet of that, and big shout out to former Coarse Grind guest Joe Sasto, who's on the roster.
Unbelievable.
Oh my God,
I love that guy.
He's a phenom, dude. He's a phenom.
I had so much fun working with him. First off, his knowledge of his craft is very, very big.
Yeah.
He's really very talented. And I had a lot of fun doing some stuff with him. We did a thing we have a segment on the platform called Unpack the Snack, where each chef we have a table that we pick from, and we get to pick 3 snacks from around the world. And Joe picked out a couple of things for me. I picked out some fun stuff for him. We had a lot of fun working together, and we took Joe out later and took him to my favorite little taco spot, a tiny little place called Brothers Cousins in LA for the greatest mulitas and quesadilla that you've ever had, that I've ever had in my life, and it's on the side of a street. And then we drove him to the airport afterwards. So the platform is really built for chefs. We're not there to dumb it down. We want chefs to be themselves. We want them to talk what they know. And they're, it's not a stifled program, shall we say.
No, I love it. And I love it. I'm looking at the team now. I just signed up for the newsletter. Folks, if you're looking for it, myworldchef.com. You need to come check this shit out because first of all, listen, if you're loyal to the program, to the platform, go check out Joe. Go check out now Brian. It's amazing. But this is not a this is not a small talent list, kids. These are big banging ass chef guests. The team looks amazing. I love the profile pictures. It all makes sense to me. myworldchef.com. Sign up, man. Sign up. Learn about it. And I just read this last line, and it's almost like you're looking into my soul. We're grateful to be a part of this community and feel called to lead the charge to end food insecurity, which is a huge cause we've espoused here at the podcast. So I'm right here with you, man.
Every box that sells, we give a portion of our proceeds to No Kid Hungry.
Love it.
We've been working with them and trying to work out the best program with them across the board. We felt through all of the charities that were out there that this was one of the ones that really touched all of us very closely. Yep. And we really wanted to make it pretty awesome. So that's who we've partnered with on a charity level.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. And God, just such a great cause all around. I can't wait to see more. And I'm looking at these pictures and the food alone. Stop it! I'm hungry. Don't do this to me.
Well, we've done, the cool thing is my brother Mike is the CEO of the company. My other brother Tim is the chief creative. He's really got the vision for the segments that we run. And we do some really neat stuff. I did a segment with Justin Warner a couple of weeks ago that was called, it's called Last Chef Standing.
Oh, nice.
Where,
okay.
we're in a kitchen, and I walk into the kitchen and look down, and there's a series of ingredients that are placed in front of me, and I have to create a dish out of those ingredients. Well, little do I know that 7 minutes into my segment, my 22-minute cooking time, all of the lights go off in the kitchen, and I now have to leave the kitchen, and I have to go, and I don't stop doing anything except, I just leave the kitchen, and I go into another kitchen where I have the same exact ingredients, and I now have to start that dish again, but finish it. So, and then when I get into the other kitchen, the new chef comes into the kitchen, turns the lights on, and he's left standing there with a coffee-rubbed flank steak in a cast iron skillet that's still cooking. So it's like, and then he has to create a dish from the items that I already started.
I love it.
So it's kind of wild, because then it got to a point that we both walk in at the end of our 22-minute time frame, and then we bring our dishes together, and to see how two chefs take the exact same ingredients and come up with two completely different dishes in two completely different genres, two completely different styles of food are put together and put on a plate is one of the most favorite things that I've ever done.
I love that. I love every dude. This is exactly where food causes, food programming, food everything comes together. Like, this is it, man. This is it. If you're looking, listen, if you've been sitting around watching, guys' grocery games or whatever, you're going to recognize the majority of these people straight out the gate. But what you don't realize sometimes, and if I may be so bold, I think sometimes, like, you lose the fact that, dude, these folks are rock stars in the industry. Like, in the industry across the board. Wow, this is amazing. I'm going to be watching it closely, and if there's ever anything Coarse Grind can do to help, we're here for it. So, without a doubt,
we've got some amazing chefs that are on our platform. We've got they're really very, very chef-driven segments that are not only fun, but they're super informative. I mean, imagine having a chef like, have you ever heard of Maria Munoz?
Yeah. Oh, hell yes. Yeah.
Okay, so Maria is a brilliant barbecue chef out of LA, who I did a segment of Unpack the Snack with. And you think about two chefs being put up against each other, and they're handing you a product. You're opening the bag, you're smelling it, you're discussing it, and it's amazing how fast your palate becomes refined when you have a blindfold on. And you're tasting something that and you're like, I can really taste the nutmeg that's in here, or this tastes more like a potato product, a crunch, and it's kind of wild to watch this stuff happen, but and it creates really fun games, and they're just little tidbits of information that you can play along with and you can check out. It's really a neat platform. We're so proud of it. We have an unbelievable team behind us, from our head of talent, who is a woman named Lisa Shotland, who basically created a lot of the chefs that are on TV today. She managed a lot of them, and we have a great relationship with them. And our sales team, we've got some unbelievable sponsors, from Aquapana and Pellegrino to Melee Kitchens we've got some really, really cool stuff going on, and we're really excited about it.
I'll say this. I think Lisa Shotland has been maybe dodging the post-COVID haircut at this point, because she looks a little overgrown in the picture. I'm just going to call
that. I love that. Well, Lisa is just one of those people. She's not an in front of camera person.
Love it.
And for our corporate retreat, which is in reality a 16-hour meeting, we had a photographer there to take pictures and do our headshots for the day, and that was Lisa's picture. So if you get a chance, everybody go to myworldchef.com, look at our talent team that's up there, and look at our group of people that are up there. And I have to say that Lisa's is probably one of my favorites. Mine's the most tame, I believe. I think mine's like super tame.
Yeah, no. I mean, yours is, and you can certainly see the Duffy lineage. Like, it is evident. Like, definitely.
We've got it pretty hardcore. So.
For sure. Man, myworldchef.com, people. Check it out. Back to Brian Duffy, if but for a moment, and then I want to touch the afters too. Like, when you're going into the kitchen, present day, now we've gone past the history. We've talked about myworldchef.com, but you have so many other things going on. Yeah. You have to have somewhere that provides you inspiration to keep going. what would you say your place that you derive the most inspiration from is, and why? Travel. Wow. Without hesitation.
It's that simple. It is that's what feeds my soul.
Love that.
The traveling, the eating, the different people that you connect with while you're on the road. I have eaten in some pretty amazing places. I mean, I remember being in Jamaica, 13 years ago, and ending up cooking in a kitchen in a really horrible section of Jamaica called the Gaza Strip.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes, they named it themselves.
Oh, my God.
But I ended up in a kitchen for about 4 hours learning how to make ackee and salt cod. It was one of the things. It's the national dish of Jamaica. It's other than jerk, but it's a very well-known dish down there. But I wanted to learn how to make it, so I went into this section of town and I sat down for lunch. I was with a friend, and the next thing I know, I'm looking in the kitchen, and I said, I want to know how to make that. And they all laughed at me. And there were 3 guys in this tiny, tiny little kitchen. But what I did after that was I ended up spending 4 hours in their kitchen and watching the preparation and learning how they season things and the way that they break down the salt cod, how long they wash it for, how it ends up with the ackee, how the ackee gets broken down. Yep. Those are the types of things that inspire me to do great stuff. I was just in LA 2 weeks ago. Yep. I ate at a bunch of different spots. I came back with a whole new love of salsas and all the sides that come with street tacos. So I ended up making a bunch of that back at the restaurant, like just taking those flavors, that unbelievable flavor of Mexican oregano. When you put that with a pickled product, is just perfect. It's perfect.
Yes.
So travel is what feeds my soul, and it feeds my creativity across the board.
I love that. I love that. So, and obviously, I think it's so easy to forget how important travel is, especially now, thanks COVID. But in light of Bourdain's memory, Bourdain was all about it. I think Bourdain brought that to the table and said, hey, look, here's the thing you need to do. Be a traveler, not a tourist, I believe his line was. And absolutely. And I can think of my favorite memories of like food, of just, sitting down in Mexico and like watching the open air kitchen and having, the guy kind of waved me back, and I got to like go in there, and just to be in there in another country, like, you want to talk about getting the cool table invite in high school. That's when you're in. When you actually get asked, like, hey, you want to come back and see? Sure. I'm not going to say no. Like, and then to learn from it and then to bring it back like you did. I mean, that's, I think, probably more than anything else, the culinary arts is a field where you are constantly learning and you never have any downtime.
Every day, whether it's with, a dishwasher that's coming in that's never been there before, that you're just working with, and you learn about these people as you go, to having conversations with, I rode through Washington State 3 years ago with a friend of mine, and we stopped at every little independent food stand or tiny little restaurant that we saw, and what I came back with was a whole new menu. Just learning the way that people are putting things together, why they're doing them, how a German woman in a tiny little town outside of Spokane, Washington, utilizes mustard, and why she does it. Like, there's so many different levels of food, and we're such an amazing melting pot of culinary wonder throughout the entire country, that if anybody who I am out with, it's like we stay to local and independent spots.
Absolutely.
If you're traveling and you're going to a Longhorn Steakhouse, guess what? I don't like you.
Exactly. Oh, well, God, I don't know that I would be that forward, but I appreciate your forthwithness.
Well, I held back, Sean. I'm going to let you know I held back a little bit more.
No, that's fair. I don't think I've gone off the record completely on that point either. Like, if you're checking in at Applebee's for an appletini, like, go fuck yourself. Sorry.
Right, exactly. No, exactly. And that's the thing, is that most of the people throughout our country, they feel comfortable doing that because of the fact that that's what they're used to seeing. You know, I always say that some of the best food is in some of the worst neighborhoods.
Oh,
I have
God
been in
damn, yes. Yep.
That have been, look, I've been in some scary situations, man. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been in some odd situations to go and have just, you know, a great hamburger. Yeah. Or an unbelievable rack of ribs. Like some of the West Philadelphia barbecue spots that I've been to created my love for barbecue, which is why I opened a barbecue restaurant a couple years ago. Nice. Because of some of these beautiful little spots that are hidden in corners, that are hidden in parking lots, that are hidden in front of churches on a Sunday afternoon. Yep. You know, that are, I mean, I have a place that I love going to that's on the corner of Girard and Lancaster Avenue that every now and then during the summer, I hear that the guy's there and he just pops up smoker up in the corner of the BP gas station and just starts slinging ribs. There's some great places to go and eat. And if you're only trying to find out where the newest Jack Daniel's glazed bacon barbecue sandwich is, then hey, you know, yeah. Then go do that. But you and I aren't going to hang out.
Exactly. Does it have fried onion straws on top? Holy shit! Let me get there.
Exactly. And I love a fried onion straw.
Same.
Love them at Fridays.
Yeah. I want it from, you know, whoever's making it from the bottom of their soul and pushing it outwards. Yeah, folks who've listened to the show have heard the honeymoon tale of how we got off a cruise ship in Belize and got into a very sketchy situation, paid a homeless man to give us a tour of town, ended up eating in his aunt's dirt-floored basement.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, it was one of the best meals of my life.
I talk about, my brothers and I were just on the phone with, do you know who Monte Carlo is?
I do, yep.
Okay, so Monty is a very good friend of mine. Nice. And during COVID, I traveled more than airline pilots, let's put it that way. I took advantage of the cheap prices. I took advantage of the fact that I'm a executive platinum on American Air because I fly so much. I utilized as much of that as I could. Nice. I flew to LA. Monty came to my hotel and picked me up, and then her and I went on a food tour where we ended up, if anybody knows anything about East LA or the food that happens out there, the greatest carnitas in the country are created by a family and a gentleman named Carnitas El Momo. And it got to a point that we were standing there and we asked to see the kitchen, which was behind a house that was put outside with a tarp over top of it. What? With a I'm not shitting you, dude. With a copper kettle in the backyard. Oh. There was a gentleman who was cooking in the copper kettle, and we started to talk to him, and he told us his story about how he was in jail, and he was about to go to jail, and he met El Momo, who turned his life around and gave him a job, and then he said, "Would you like to meet El Momo?" And I'm like, well, shit, yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, the next thing I know, we're being invited into their house where Momo and his wife are sitting at a table with your classic, like, vinyl tablecloth over top of it. And what is in the center of the table but carnitas that they're picking at with their fingers and just putting it on little tortillas, and they're just eating it for lunch in the afternoon. And we're in there now with 7 people, having conversations with them, talking to them about the food. And how did it happen? Because we asked.
Exactly. And isn't that what it all goes back to?
Yeah.
You just have to ask whether it's an incredible, bordering on amazing podcast guest like I have right now, or just like any opportunity, dude. Just ask. What's the worst thing they say? No. Cool. I'll move on.
I love my little mottos and my little anecdotes for things, but I say that, you've got a 100% shot of a no if you don't ask.
Exactly.
You got a 50-50 if you do. I say it to my daughters and everybody in my life. You got a 100% shot of a no if you don't ask.
No question.
There's nothing wrong with asking.
Yep.
Yep. And you'd be surprised at what happens when you do ask. I mean, I've gotten in cars and I've gotten in Ubers.
Yeah.
And I've had guys say to me, are you sure you want to go to this location? And I say, well, where else would you eat the greatest soul food in Atlanta? And the guy goes, okay, you're right. I got you. And then I go to that location and I spend 2 hours there. And I end up in the kitchen and I end up meeting the owner of the restaurant and finding out about the history and why it is is that this restaurant was put together, and how necessity was one of the things that really led them. Those are the types of things that drive and feed me. And a lot of people say that sometimes I can be pushy, but I'm not pushy. I'm just asking. I'm asking you really what the limitations are.
Exactly. We're so wrapped up in manners and decorum that we forget to ask.
And I'm very polite. Yeah. I'm very positive. I'm not a negative, like, what do you mean I can't see the kitchen? Yeah. And I'm like, hey, look, I'm a chef. I travel all over the world. I love food. I'd love to come in. If it's a secret ingredient, you can hide them. I just want to see how you make your damn fried chicken.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even have the chef credentials, man. I'm a G-list podcast host, and they let me in anyway. It's pretty awesome. Yeah. So I gotta ask you, man. Everything you got going on, myworldchef.com, coming up. Talk to me about the 5-year plan, man.
Oh God,
what are you doing?
I don't think about those. I don't think about 5-year plans.
I love that. Actually, yeah. I actually love that answer.
I think for me, one of my biggest things is don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm thinking about my future. I'm thinking about what I want to do. I'm thinking about where I want to live and who I want to be with and where I would like my children to be. Mm-hmm. But for me, I don't really have a 5-year plan. I have kind of a guideline for things that I like to do. I know that I want to travel the world more than I already have. And how am I going to get to that point? Whether it be notes that I take or ideas that I have or things like that, that's my 5-year plan is to be happy.
I love, you know what?
My 5-year plan.
Yeah, I mean, that's at the end of the day, that's all you need to do. And I mean, listening to your story, to your present day, I mean, I am so, I can't even begin to explain, over the 8 years of this podcast now, I can say 8 years, that sucks. It sucks and it's cool at the same time.
Awesome, dude.
Yeah. It's, to talk to somebody with that wonderful, simple answer is rewarding being in this seat. Hearing the answers, hearing people struggle with, well, we're going to create 2 other brick and mortars and blah, 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 blah. To hear you say that tells me all is right with the world right now.
Well, and I do, look, and don't get me wrong. I mean, I have plans. I absolutely have plans for business, but when you travel, it changes your entire perspective about a tremendous amount. You're no longer shocked at stuff.
No.
You roll with the punches. I mean, I flew home from LA last week or a week and a half ago, and I skied while I was out there. I brought my skis to LA. Don't ask any questions, but I brought my skis to LA.
Okay.
And I got out there, and when I landed, I was, I was waiting for my skis to come through. And the guy sent me down to the one corner of it. He said, they're going to come out there. I know they're going to come out there. You just have to go and wait. So I stand by the thing, and I'm standing there for 20 minutes, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. My girlfriend is outside waiting for me, and she's picking me up at the airport. And then I finally walk down. All the stuff comes up. My skis aren't there. I walk down to the other side. I stand in the corner of the room waiting like everybody else to get in line and talk. And I said, hey, you told me to go up there, and I look out the window and there's my skis. Now, most people are going to yell and, what the hell? I can't believe you made me do this. This is a waste of my time away. But it was it's just par for the course.
Yeah.
It's like when a pilot comes on and says, hey, we found a little bit of an issue with a screw that was in in our lunchbox cabinet, and we have to fix it. And everybody groans and they get angry. But to me, I'm glad that the pilot found that.
Dude, exactly.
Because that means that he paid attention to a whole lot of shit going on the outside of a plane, and he found out that his lunchbox was loose. I'm cool with that.
1,000%.
So when you travel, you become more patient. You have a better understanding of different cultures, respecting other people within their space, their culture, their religion. It changes the way that you see the world. And if everybody can travel, I don't care how you do it, even if you leave your state and get in a car and drive 3 hours away from where you are, you're going to meet a different culture and different people, and you become more accepting of every part of it, and your brain grows. And not only does it grow with knowledge, but it grows inside of your heart as well, because you become compassionate and you become much more patient about the life that happens around you.
Exactly. God damn. We're close enough. We got to hang out sometime. All right.
But I'm going to tell you what. If you screw something up in my kitchen while you're cooking it, I'm going to let you know it. Yeah. I'm not always peace and love, boys and girls.
I love that. I love that as well.
I'm no stranger to getting loud.
Fantastic. Hey, couple afters questions on the other end. Yeah. Now that we know where you're headed, where your direction is going. Excuse me. You and I are cooking in your kitchen. You can pick professionally or at home. Doesn't matter. You're in control of the playlist. What are we listening to?
Oh, dude, you're going to Spotify.
Yeah.
Very simple. You're going to search Chef Brian Duffy, and you're going to pull up a playlist called AQ. That's it. A space Q. That is my playlist. That playlist has everything from 1990s Chub Rock on it to bluegrass covers that you're going to sing along the entire day because you never thought how much you'd love bluegrass before. It is an unbelievable playlist that I add to all the time. I listen to it. People stop me in the restaurant to find out what playlist it is. It's just, and I listen to it in my car. I listen to it in my house. How my family, friends, girlfriend don't hate me or how they still drive with me shocks me. Because it's like, you get in the car and the first thing you hear is, Green Sky Bluegrass playing Time by Pink Floyd.
I love it. God damn.
It's a great song.
I love it, man. I'm there for it. I'm going to check it out. Next afters question. You're going to be stranded on a deserted island. You can only bring 3 foods or food type items with you. Inexhaustible supply through the power of imagination. But only 3 things can you bring. What would they be and why?
Oh, shit. Well, the cool part about you're stranded on an island is the fact that you have abundance around you everywhere.
He's thinking, kids. He's thinking.
That's
he gets
the really, really cool part. So the things that I would bring with me would probably be... Can it be a utensil?
Absolutely.
So it would be a fish spatula.
Ooh, okay.
I think it would probably be... Oh, that's tough now. I would have to, it's going to be like a utility knife, and a utility knife, not like a pocket knife, but like a utility knife, something that you can cut tomatoes with, but I can also break down a fish.
Love it. Okay.
Would definitely be that. And then I'm kind of tossed up because for me, salt is so important. I mean, I'm sitting here at my desk right now, and you can't hear this, but I'm looking at a little tiny tin of Jacobson salt from Washington. Okay. Like these are I'm such a massive salt fan. that is something that is it Washington? Sorry, Portland, Oregon. My bad. Okay. That's something that I love. But here's me. I know I'm on an island, so I'm surrounded by salt water. So what I would do is I would set up a tray that would accept the salt water, but hold it. Then it would dry. So then I would receive the flakes, and I would make my own sea salt.
Love it.
But from there, I probably would have to say that knife. I would have to say a pepper mill, and I'd have to bring pepper with me.
Okay.
Or at least find a method to get pepper or peppercorns, because I love fresh ground pepper. I think salt and pepper on fish, just seared or grilled, is the greatest thing going with a little citrus.
All right.
That's kind of where I would be.
That's it, man. That's it. And I love how functional, how utilitarian that is. Like you clearly you know your shit. Clearly you're from Pennsylvania. Like we know how to fish. We got that. We got that on board. We got that covered.
Plus, how many times have you watched Naked and Afraid, man? Like, dude, come on.
Exactly, man. Put a spear through the side of that bitch. We'll bring it up.
Exactly.
So Melanie Denea was a famous I said a past tense. I don't know why. Famous photographer. She did the book My Last Supper. Have you heard of this?
I'm Googling her as I'm speaking to you. What is her last name?
Dunea, Dunea. And so she made My Last Supper and The Next Course. So the famous picture she's known for is that beef femur between his legs, right? He was standing there naked, exposed to the world. So she did My Last Supper and The Next Course, and on the cover of that is Marco Pierre White holding some kind of round in front of his face. But anyway, the format for the book is 50 famous chefs. and they're all asked the same question. And that's kind of where I got the format for the show from. So, Chef Brian Duffy, I got to ask you, what's your last supper? What are you eating? What are you drinking? Who's there? Talk to me.
You know what's funny is it kind of switches. I go back and forth on this all the time because, one, I honestly believe that it could be a taco, but it's got to be like a street taco out of Tijuana. And then I think the other is like a really amazing dry-aged ribeye.
Love it.
That's just seared and basted, like very simple, very stupid, with a little bit of herb butter that goes on top with just good salt and pepper. And to me, I'm good to go from there.
Love it. Love it, man. Love it.
Yeah.
And finally, the last question, the simplest and yet the most complex. I ask of everyone, what is food to you in a single word?
Food? Oh, gee, what is food to me? History.
Ooh! You might have just asked... I can pretty much assure that is a unique answer. No one's answered that before. Talk to me about that. Why history?
It's where it starts, man. I mean, that's, my grandmother would go down to the Italian market and buy live chickens when she was a little girl and bring them home. The recipes and I don't have regrets. I have, I've made mistakes in my past. One of the things that I actually regret is not talking more about food with my grandmother. Yeah. Because my grandmother was a great cook. She cooked classic Italian. To me, food is it's history. Yeah. And we're at such an amazing place in our lives right now. Where, if everybody just realizes, thank God we're out of the 80s and 90s and all the food bullshit.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're tip to tail, unlike we've ever imagined. One of my favorite dishes that I've ever had was a crispy pig ear salad and meat and potatoes in the Theater District in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Okay, and we're at that point where we can do anything we want. We're not stuck into a genre. We're not stuck into a world of, I can't believe you paired this with that.
Exactly,
that's unbelievable. Because we can do whatever we want, and we have so much at our fingertips. We have so much to offer to people that, to me, I say it all the time. I'm not trying to recreate the culinary wheel. I'm just trying to do it justice.
Love that.
I want my staff to understand technique, because when you teach somebody technique, then they respect what they're doing more. It's like my sous chef said to me a couple weeks ago, why don't, we should get a mandolin in so we can do this, this, and this. And I said, no, because if I bring a mandolin in, then you guys are going to take carrots and run them over a mandolin. You're not going to know how to julienne a carrot. Yep. You're not going to know how to julienne a potato. You're not going to know how to do this, this, and this. You're going to be lazy. Somebody asked me once why I don't have a tomato dicer in my restaurant. And I said, because I'm not lazy, because I'd rather you know how to dice a tomato.
Man, if my wife is listening right now, she's such a mandolin fan, and I'm, I cringe a little bit. Every time she pulls it out, I'm like, really? And she's like, and this food processor. I'm like, God damn it. God damn it.
Now, don't get me wrong. I do have a Ben Reiner Japanese mandolin in my kitchen, because the blade is so perfectly fine and it's so sharp that I can do it at, a 16th of an inch.
Right.
And I can do, like the other day, I ran all of my jalapenos, my long hots, and my habaneros over it for my pickled peppers that I did for one of my tacos.
Perfect.
And you know what? Could I make that cut? Yeah. I mean, I'm great with a knife.
Do you want to?
Make that
cut. Do you
want
to?
But I know how to do it, and there's the difference.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that I feel. So technique is just, it's so important that we continuously teach our dishwashers, our cooks, our servers. I used to have an Irish restaurant, and I used to have our servers would peel potatoes and clean onions in the kitchen, because it created a camaraderie between the front and back of the house.
Absolutely. God,
there was a conversation. We listened to music. We used to listen to Dane Cook every day, his comedy specials on the radio while we were all in the kitchen, and we had we all still talk to each other.
I love that.
One of my prep cooks is an artist now. Well, I bought 3 paintings from, and I put them in my restaurants.
That's
you know,
fantastic.
like, there's something to be said about that time that everybody spends in the kitchen paying attention to technique.
Without a doubt. Technique is history, and history, according to Chef Brian Duffy, is food, kids. So, Chef Brian Duffy, goddamn, I'm going to try to make my way down this list of plugs, and please fill in wherever I neglect. I'm going to try my best here. Obviously, you're out on the Facebook, the Insta, chefbrianduffy.com, Duffifed Live Podcast, DEG Consulting, and myworldchef.com. Am I missing anything, brother?
No, dude, I think, Instagram is one of my favorite places. I share pretty much everything. I'm now in the Reel and TikTok world,
oh boy,
which I love. I think that the creativity is amazing to watch what people do, and we're starting to play around with it a lot in the restaurant, and I'm really having a lot of fun with it. So,
cool.
I'll be, I'm around. So anytime you want to hang out, brother, you let me know.
You got it, buddy. We'll toss TikTok in that mix, too. Be sure to check him out. Chef Brian Duffy, chefbrianduffy.com, myworldchef.com. So many things going on. Do not miss him. Our producer, as always this evening, has been the Reverend Johnny Lamoria, a.k.a. Johnny Leland Robinson. Be sure to check out all his steampunk, libertarian happenings in the 18431. And the next episode, kids, is going to be number 184. You will not want to miss it. Stay tuned. Are you passing through Central Pennsylvania and looking for one of the best dining experiences and craft brew menus around? Look no further. Turkey Hill Brewing Company and 991 Central Road in Bloomsburg, PA has everything you could ask for and then some. Service, food, beer together. Unbelievable. Be sure to check them out. Call them today for reservations. 570-387-8422. Call today.